7 children, and one of them actually married an Irishman, and they had 8 kids in Ireland. One of them became a member, ran for politics. He was a member of the Green Party, became a member of the Dublin City Council, then the Irish Council, Dow, we call ours the Senate, and the House of Representatives, but they call them the Dow, and then he became a member of the EU. And so that's pretty exciting. And the other one, my favorite, my lovely cousin who just died, her husband was a Viking scholar, was knighted. I know you didn't believe this is what you came to hear about. You know, you have to watch what happens when you go to a speech. You never know what's going to happen to you. But he became a Viking scholar, and he was knighted by Denmark and Sweden and Norway. You know, the Vikings got here before Columbus, I'm sure you all know. That's what Steny Hoyer always says. The Irish are filled with Viking blood. What else?
Do you want to use a mic? Want to use a mic?
Oh, want the mic? You really want to hear me after that?
He's got a mic.
It's a lapel, yes. Oh, I didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This is better.
It might be easier for you.
Favorite standalone Ethel story? Just by herself.
Oh, okay. So when my mother liked horses. And when she was in college, she had a crush on a rider from Ireland. Has anybody heard this story? So he was the best rider in Ireland. And he was going to show his horse in Madison Square Garden. So she called him up and she said she was a New York Times reporter. And she suggested they meet at Schrapp's. Has anybody heard of Schrapp's? No, it was an ice cream place in New York City. So after 10 minutes, she talked to him for 10 minutes or so, and after 10 minutes, he threw it up and he said, "You are not a New York Times reporter." And so he got up in anger and left. Well, my mother did not like to be insulted like that. So he had this wonderful, beautiful white stallion. And she thought, So she got some green dye, which she put in a bucket and went into the stall at Madison Square Garden and painted his horse green. And he always thought it was the Venezuelans. You never know what's going to happen with my mother. And what's kind of the nice part of the story, which you can't believe there's anything nice about it, to tell you the truth, but it kind of gives you a sense of my mother, right? When she was married to my father, she saw that he was back in Madison Square Garden. By that time, he had married somebody called Dot Tuberty. And she invited him. She said, "Oh, there's this great writer." So she invited him and his wife to Georgetown to join them. And she never told them that it wasn't the Venezuelans.
She never confessed?
She never confessed.
Really?
And Dot Tuberty became one of my mother's. He eventually, unfortunately, died in a riding accident. But Dot Tuberty became my mother's and my Aunt Eunice's best friend for the next 50 years.
And she never told?
Well, Dot Tuberty certainly knew the story. Because it's such a funny story. If it wasn't yours.
Favorite story? One of your favorite stories of your dad?
Well, one of the, I think there are a number of favorite stories. I think one of them, there are three great serious stories about my father. One, I think you've all heard, was what he did in Indianapolis after Martin Luther King died, so I'm not going to repeat that. I will tell you the letter he wrote me after John Kennedy died. I will tell you that stuff because I think that's really important, and it's important particularly at this time. So after President Kennedy died, he wrote me this letter, and I'm going to tell you the letter he wrote me. He said, "Dear Kathleen, you seem to understand that Jack died and was buried today. As the oldest of the Kennedy grandchildren, you have a special responsibility. A responsibility to Jack and to Joe, and Joe was my uncle who died in World War II. Be kind to others, work for your country, love, Daddy." And I love that. I love talking about that letter because I think what he did with that is he said, what are the things that are important? One, family. Two, kindness, how you treat other people. Two, what do you do? How do you find purpose in your life? Working for your country. And the importance of love. There was no talk about revenge. There was no talk about anger. There was no talk about let's find out what went on or who did it. And those are the languages that you'd hear today. And as a result of that letter, I didn't spend the next 30 years trying to figure out what happened. It didn't eat me up. As you know, it does eat other people up. I've been in the criminal justice system. I've seen other people care about what happened to my uncle or how did it happen. But that freed me from not caring about that and thinking about what I can do to make this country better. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is my family, how I treat other people, and how I make this country better. And that is a gift that I think everybody benefits from. And he, in a time when he had to entertain all the people who were coming from all over the world to be with him because of a terrible tragedy, he thought it was worthwhile to sit down and write that letter to me, and he wrote other letters to other siblings. He said different things to each of my siblings. So I think that thoughtfulness and that caring is really quite a stunning tribute to his character and to how he wanted this country to be and to what he wanted our family to be.
So did you feel a burden being the oldest?
Well, what do you think? Of course.
I mean,
Yeah, if you grew up Catholic, what do you think you're supposed to feel? A burden. I mean,
I
that's...
don't know, I'm not Catholic.
Oh, well, do you want me to baptize you?
Only one baptism, thank you.
Well, happy to do it. Anyway, yeah, a burden, that is life. That is what you're taught in Catholic school. Life is a burden. You're here to serve God. You're here to do good. That is not something new. That is just part of the deal.
But he obviously saw in you something he didn't see in others.
I don't think that's true.
No?
I think if you listen to his speeches, for instance, when he's at the University of Kansas, I could be making this up, it might have been the University of Nebraska, but I think it is the University of Kansas. And he talks about how doctors should have a special responsibility to take care of the people, the poor and the sick. And one of the students stands up, and who will pay for this? And he says, you will. You're the lucky ones. You're the privileged ones. And he's right. So he felt, and John Kennedy, he felt this from his parents, because his parents had grown up seeing the injustice that was the Irish felt in Boston, even though they were lucky ones in Boston. But they saw how many people had suffered. And I can't tell you how many times I heard growing up from those who have been given much, much will be expected. That was a constant refrain, and I think John Kennedy said that in his inaugural address. And you certainly heard that in Catholic school. You have a responsibility. So that whole idea of responsibility is ingrained.
If you're Catholic, it's ingrained from that.
It's ingrained in Catholic, it's ingrained in our family, and it should be ingrained, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country was ingrained at that time. And if you think about all those people who served in World War II, it was ingrained in all those people who served. That was a culture. He was speaking. This was not an unusual thing to say or to think. We have a different culture right now. But I think Bill Clinton tried to revive that idea with AmeriCorps. I certainly tried to do it when before I became lieutenant governor. I made Maryland the first state to require community service as a graduation requirement. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you've missed so much about me. Because I think that the idea of the power that it comes from knowing that you can make a difference is really quite stunning and quite wonderful. As well as knowing that that is part of that's what makes things important. I mean, anyway, as you can tell, I could go on and on about this, so you may want to hear about something else.
Okay, being a Kennedy during the 60s, what was that like? Privileges, downsides? Did your kids stay mostly at Hickory Hill?
No.
No.
We were so lucky. I mean, our parents took us, we went down the Salmon River, the Green River. We went down many rivers. We went skiing all over the country. We traveled. One of our great trips was another terrible story, a funny story for some of us, not for General Taylor. General Taylor, as I think people in this room would remember, was one of the great heroes of World War II and of the D-Day. He was head of the paratroopers. Did any of you know this? Okay, you guys. We are going through a history lesson. So at D-Day, General Maxwell Taylor was head of the paratroopers who landed in D-Day. And he was, under John Kennedy, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In 1964, it was the 20th anniversary of D-Day, and he called up my father and he said, would you like to come to Normandy with me and celebrate the 20th anniversary of D-Day? And Daddy came home, and I remember he came and he was sitting with Mommy, and I was at the dinner table, and he said, oh, General Taylor just called and said, would I like to go to France with him and celebrate the 20th anniversary of D-Day? And he said, I don't know if I want to go. What do you think? And she said, oh, yeah, I'd love to go to France. And maybe I'll take a couple of the children with me. And it would be kind of fun if I had a few friends with me, too. So she ended up bringing 3 children and 2 friends, which is not exactly what General Taylor had in mind. So we got on an Air Force plane. 2 friends, 3 kids, and Mom. And as Mommy described it, she's never seen a general get off a plane more quickly than General Taylor did when we landed in Normandy. But we had a great month. We had a month, and we went to all the battles. I mean, this was way before there were many people fixing up Day. So we traveled around Europe, and then in a very interesting way, we then then Daddy joined us in Berlin, where we met Willy Brandt. And then we went to Poland, where the Poles originally didn't want to give Daddy a visa, but then they were afraid he might become president, so it's not a good idea to not let us in. And I'll just tell you about that trip, because the Poles would not, remember, they were under communist dictatorship at that time. They were under the Soviets. And so they were told, don't put this on the radio, don't say anything about my father's trip in the newspapers. But when we came out of church in Warsaw, there were maybe 100,000 people in the square, which shows there was an incredible underground in Poland at that time, which obviously grew into Solidarity 20 years later. And we got on top of the car, and it was just an incredible crowd. And the same thing happened when we went to Krakow. And years later, when Mommy, and then we all went to see Cardinal Wyszynski, who was under sort of house arrest. He was the Polish cardinal. And when my mother went to meet Pope John Paul II, he said, we've met before. She said, really? He said, yeah, I made you a grilled cheese sandwich. You came to see Cardinal Wyszynski and said you were hungry, and I was a Monsignor, and I had to make you a sandwich. So you never know who you're going to meet. It was really great, and it really taught. I have it at my house now. I have a picture of us when I was 13, huge crowds, and then I have a picture of the Pope. And you can see, and of Lech Walesa, different pictures, because Lech Walesa grew out of Solidarity, grew out of those crowds. There was obviously a huge underground. Anyway, I just thought, it's interesting. Thank you, General Taylor, for inviting my father.
Yeah.
Who would never know. You never know. So say yes as much as you can. So I was lucky.
Dad's favorite color.
His
Your
favorite,
Dad's favorite color.
his favorite color? Oh, probably blue.
Blue? Sport?